Okay, we're live. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to Becoming Divine. My name is Julia Wesley. I am a professional medium and a channel for my guides. And today I have my friend, Georgiana Alexander, with us. She is a speaker, a coach, a teacher, and a lifelong transformational junkie. And we're going to talk about yoga and like a bunch of other stuff. So, hi, Georgie. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
I am so excited that you're here. When I started doing this, you were like one of the first people that I was like, I need to interview Georgiana because I've worked with you and your work is legit transformational. Like you're not just saying that. And I can totally vouch for it. It's been like personally transformational. Like I still go back to the yoga classes that you've developed and I still get things out of it.
I
You know,
love that. I
yeah,
love that. That's
love it.
so exciting because you create something for someone and you and you trust in the work that you're doing, but to be able for each person to have their own experience with that
Mm.
and to be able to feel that and witness that and see that in their lives. And that's really cool, especially with someone close, as you are. It's really, really cool to get to see that in action.
And I know that we're probably jumping ahead a little bit in things, but like you're a yoga teacher, you create yoga classes. They're amazing, they're awesome. And I think one of the things that makes it so great is because you do leave the space for everyone to have their own experience, you know?
Yes.
That
Well, I do a couple different yes. So I can we can jump right into the yoga work that I do. And I kind of call it transformational yoga because really I can teach regular classes where it's just about body work or, more of a traditional yoga experience, if there is such a thing as a traditional yoga experience. But the work that I particularly am interested in is aligning with people with their needs or ideas that they have or blocks that they have and helping really create a physical, um, spiritual, energetic space through yoga poses and through breath work and meditation, and sometimes even sound healing within a class that is going to grow and shift with them with their needs. So each time they come back to it, it's going to help them transform more or drop off more baggage or release old wounds or emotional patterns in their body. So that's really our goal of what we're working on. So it's really exciting to see.
and like I can totally vouch. Like I want to start like I want to run down the streets and tell people to work with you because I've seen that transformation in my own life. And it just totally works. And so the reason I really like retaking your yoga classes is because it does combine sort of like that transformational work, like moving through those blocks and also involving my body, which I personally have a tendency to like kind of forget about. And so I love that you're able to combine the two rather than just like making it all about the body or keeping it all up in your head. Do you know what I mean? It's completely
Right.
different. Yeah.
It's really utilizing all your tools
Exactly.
and
And
bringing
so
it all together.
exactly. And so because in this podcast, I really like to focus on reclaiming your inner authority, aka becoming divine, allowing yourself the
Mhm.
permission to be who you are and not needing anyone else's. I really wanted to talk about how you use yoga to reclaim your inner authority.
I love that. I love what you're doing and the work that you're doing. It's incredible and powerful. And just again, I'm so happy to get to be here and talk to you about this. So to kind of, I think probably to start, it's a good idea to talk about how I got into
Mhm,
involved with yoga.
mhm.
Um, it's been a while. It's been yeah, it was like more than 20 years and leave it at that, but it's
Holy
been a while.
smokes.
I know it was really amazing because growing up, my mom was very much into Kalanetics, which is kind of a combination of, I guess, Pilates movements and dance and things like that. But then I had the mom of my high school boyfriend actually was into yoga. She was also a
Oh,
Virgo, as am I, and so I always had an affinity for my Virgos out there.
yeah.
But she was really into meditation and yoga, and it struck such a deep chord with me. And even though I'd had that other background in movement and always really loved being active, I really just kind of was drawn to the idea of yoga and I didn't understand why. But then when I would do it physically, I was sort of meh about it. It wasn't, I would take classes and somehow, even though I would go to incredible teachers and go to these great classes, I sort of always felt like a fraud going into the classes. Like if I didn't know all the poses and know how to do them perfectly, that it somehow I wasn't showing up good enough,
Yeah.
So I really had this deep struggle with being drawn to this thing and feeling like that's somehow a path for me. And yet at the same time, being kind of shut down to it and like, I don't really like this, to be honest. It's
Mhm.
not that great.
Yeah.
And so it took really a long time of me coming back to that. So, I mean, I would still practice, even though I would just kind of do it more as a physical modality and an exercise, really, not as something that I felt on some level I felt soul connected, but in the action of doing it, I was very disconnected
Mm.
from how those two work together. So, in fast forwarding um, along my journey a bit more, I really, very early on became a transformational junkie and also harnessing my energy work that I would practice and work with others on and really just an overall lifestyle of wanting to learn more and more about the way the body, the mind, the spirit works when it comes to food,
Mm.
healing, energy, all of those different facets. I was just obsessed. I would just want to soak in any information that I could. But still this piece with yoga wasn't clicking.
Mm.
And so it wasn't until I guess um, it's been right at about 10 years ago that I was going through a very, very difficult time in my life, in my journey, and decided to start just doing yoga every single day and doing yoga that really pushed me hard.
Mm.
And it was somewhere in the middle of a forced yoga, and I was doing it at home. So I wasn't working with anyone else or around them. And I think that was important for me because I really needed to feel my own energy and my own hangups.
Mhm.
And when I was going into classes, I'm so empathic and sensitive to other people's energies. I was actually just feeling all of their stuff. And so that's probably another reason I wasn't able to connect to what it needed to be for me. But
Yeah.
so somewhere in this process, I was in the middle of a yoga class and that I was just doing from online. And suddenly had this sensation of how I could feel my body connect to my soul, to my energy, to my surroundings. And it was just this one full circle connection. And it suddenly clicked for me how important that is for us to go into space where we allow ourselves to completely connect to each of the different components that oftentimes we're disconnected between. And so then utilizing my background, fast forward a little bit more forward,
Mm.
and I started really understanding more and more about how we hold um, everything that happens to us in our cells, in our body, in our energy fields.
Mhm.
And so then outside of yoga, I was teaching classes and workshops and coaching with people just on a what I call a friendly basis as people would kind of come into my life. It wasn't something that was all day, every day. It was just as the opportunities would arise, as people would sort of show up into my life with needs. And it was during this time that all of the other transformational work that I was doing and then learning more about the way yoga works with the body and really diving deeper into my practice and learning and teaching with that became something that clicked the two together for me in the way that we can use yoga really as a moving meditation, really also not only as a moving meditation, but a way to transform our lives and help really clear our energies, bodies, to really work with our intentions, to work with, blocks and help ourselves transform more easily and more naturally than just being in our head about things. So it's a way to utilize the way our systems and our bodies naturally work and move with energy and with how we get caught up in our heads and kind of shifting the conversation between our head and our body.
Mhm.
And I guess using that as a hack to be able to use yoga as a transformation tool,
Yeah.
not just physically, but in every category of life that we want to transform in.
So there are a couple things I want to hit on there. So when you
Okay,
said
dive in. I
the
know we
body,
covered a lot.
you did well, that was great. So when you said the body does store your emotions, and I want to say that I didn't fully believe that until I did a
Mhm.
yoga class with you. And it was like when I think you moved me into alignment because before I was also just sort of like doing yoga as a body exercise. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't even like it. But it wasn't until you like brought the energy aspect into it for me that I was like, oh, like when, especially like in the hips, I had so much
Mhm.
stored in my hips, like so much like trauma emotions I wasn't dealing with. And it wasn't until I could feel myself get into alignment and you so helped with that. And I was like, oh my God. And I can just let go of all of that. Um,
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than I think in our heads we think it is to let go, to surrender, to transform. We
Yeah.
make it so much more difficult.
Mhm.
And I think especially for women, well, women and men, but I think even more for women, we hold so much stuck energy and old emotions or old wounds in our hip area typically. So just by being in alignment, being in intention and awareness with that, it's really easy to surrender, but you have to kind of know, hey, what does it feel like to surrender? And that's the tricky thing sometimes is we don't want to admit in our heads that we don't know what we're doing, that we're not the boss of
Mhm.
everything with our body.
Mhm.
you know, and
Yeah.
kind of we end up locking ourselves down physically in ways. And then we are also locking down our flow, our energy, and our actual thought because our ego, aka our over analyzing brain,
Right.
um, is
Yeah.
and actually I love our brain, but we're just going to say, I mean, the over analyzing side of our
Mhm.
mind typically runs with the ego in mind
Yep.
versus being in full alignment. So that's what I mean by saying that.
Yeah.
But so when we with the okay, to kind of go back with how we hold things in our body, our cells have memory of each experience in our lives, and not just our experiences, but the world around us and
Yeah.
our body's interpretation of the world around us. I mean, it may or may be a distorted interpretation of what that looks like, but we have storage of that. We get scared and we clamp onto
Mhm.
ideas and ideals and memories. And it could actually even be something that was really positive, but maybe it got jumbled up with a negative experience and it's a stuck, kind of blocked emotion. Sometimes even happiness, if we don't surrender it, or anger, if we don't surrender it, it can become a negative impact to our bodies and actually start to, over a long period of time, create physical ailments. That's where a lot of our modern day sicknesses come from, is
Yeah.
when we're not surrendering our old emotions or ideas or hurts or pains or traumas.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so great to give your body permission and your energy body permission to really continually work through that and let go.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. I feel like there's so much more that we could talk. Like I'm having a hard time keeping it to just yoga. But so I like how you made that distinction of like the ego because I also don't necessarily think that the ego is something evil. Like what I have learned from my guides, what they taught me is that the ego is just a function of perspective, but it becomes unbalanced when it forgets that it's part of a whole. So I
Right.
like how you said that like when you sort of bring attention to the ego, stop, take it out of the over analyzing and, help it rebalance because I don't know, I've just definitely seen the effects of how healthy that is, and even like I didn't
Yes.
realize I was doing it. And then on top of that, like holding on to other people's stuff. Like I didn't even realize, because I'm so stuck in being over analyzing all the time, that I'm actually holding on to other people's nonsense. And yeah, and it was, I remember you one time, I think our most recent yoga class, you were like, okay, if you're holding on to someone else's stuff, make sure you just let that go. And I was like, oh my God. I didn't realize I was doing that.
Right. I know it's really funny because in our minds we're living in our ego minds. We sometimes, especially in times of high stress or
Mm,
fear, we get really into a forward motion. Train is on the tracks moving 100 miles an hour. So
mhm.
we're going in one direction.
Right.
And if we're going in that direction out of fear and out of disconnect from all the other balances of our nature, of our body, of our mind, and our flow, which oftentimes happen, you somehow end up in this trajectory and you don't even realize, oh wait, I'm not even breathing. And I'm not breathing, I feel scared. You don't even realize all the different things that are going on with you, which is why it's so important to, I think, even more so during times like we're dealing with currently, really take multiple times throughout the day to just pause and breathe
Mm,
and reconnect, to kind of just check in with yourself. And there's little things that you can do, little tips that you can do to just see, where am I? How am I feeling? How am I doing? And we're doing good. Or clear your energy field, or what I like to call just static. We feel so much in the world around us.
yeah.
Most of us are very empathic, whether we name it that or not. We're getting so much static from the media to other people's emotions, and it's just so loud right now
Mm,
that it's really easy to go into perpetual motion with that. It's like running on empty is what it feels like. You're just running on empty fumes, lit at both ends of the candle,
mhm.
and you're not really fulfilling yourself. You're not really tapping into your source. And so that kind of brings it back to coming into your own, I forget how you phrased it, but coming into your own authority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I call it inner authority because I like to make the distinction between just like being responsible for yourself and trying to control other people, because that's like another thing. I think a lot of the times we think that like authority is authority over other people. And I'm like, you only need to worry about yourself, really. Because as
Right.
soon as you start like making power moves for you, like the world will rearrange itself around you. It will.
Hmm.
You just have to be willing to be that powerful. And I think that scares a lot of people. Um,
Well,
I,
we're really good as humans at really focusing on what other people are doing, right? Because we're all mirrors for one another.
Mhm.
And so we're looking in the mirror of this other person reflecting. And so we're really good at identifying what's going on over there, but
Yeah.
we're still in denial that it's happening right here.
Yeah.
And so we like to focus on fixing outside of ourselves versus
Yes.
inside. And it really works in reverse to that. When we focus on what's going on the inside, that's where everything in the outside shifts and transforms
Yeah.
to realign with the next phase that we're in of what new
Mhm.
transformation we're in. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of, I think for me, so for like a guru, I think a good guru is someone who just turns you back to yourself for answers and
Okay.
solutions. And when I do yoga with you, that kind of seems like your method, at least. So it seems sort of like you're like, all right, go back in, you know, refocus. How does your body feel? And so I think that when we're talking about kind of like coming into like your inner authority practices, like self care things, like what you're talking about, like that's such a great way to just start taking responsibility for how do I feel?
Hmm.
Like maybe I'm going to like shut up for a second and pay attention to me.
Right, exactly. Well, I think that first of all, I don't know how I feel about the guru or not. I get what you're saying, but but I don't know if I would associate guru with anything around. But I
No
get what you're
pressure.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, no pressure there. But I think it's really important to, I mean, I guess my thought on it all is that it's taken me a really long journey, and not always an easy one, in the ups and downs of what I've come to or come through, of wanting to discover more and understand more. It's a lot, it's been a lot. And
Mhm.
I'm really excited to share with others a more simplified version, because I love taking really massive information and assimilating it to the bare bones of what it is and saying, oh, all of that for this. Okay, well, then let me just pass on this, Jen, because this is all that matters. And then giving that to those around me, or those that ask me, for that key component that they need to take with them in their lives. I don't ever want to be the person
Mhm.
that someone has to keep coming back to for
Mhm.
more and more reconnection to themselves. I think it's really important that we recognize and learn, our connection with ourselves and our empowerment within ourselves. And, and also that what we're looking for externally, well, I don't love the idea of having to look externally for anything, but I think what shows up externally are the answers to the questions we've asked,
Yeah.
the answers to the transformations that we've asked for,
Mhm.
and the ideas that we've set intentions to create. I think that's what's showing up in our external lives. And so I think that having support systems outside, or people that show up in your life as support or as answers, that's really, I think, a healthy way that I prefer to look at it. And then that those people, that you take those seeds of information and you grow with that, and then you grow more deeply into empowerment within yourselves,
Mhm.
or within yourself. So that's kind of, I guess, the way that I look at a transformation journey. I definitely like to set things up, if I'm talking to someone or teaching a class, or providing information or service, that really gives someone all that they need to really thrive in their lives and come into all the questions that will lead them forward into all the places they're wanting to go, versus me being their guru or their
Yeah.
teacher. And I'm sort of the one that's just shown up in their lives because I'm the next piece that's been brought into the game, so that they can find their transformation answers.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it's funny because I said the same thing to my dad one time about, I don't want to have people like keep coming back to me. Like, I want people to be able to eventually do this by themselves. And he's like, so bad business plan. And I was
Right.
like, whatever. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, the next thing I wanted to talk about though is I wondered how you came into like your own authority as a healer because I
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think, we were kind of talking through this earlier, and my initial thought is it's a day-to-day process.
yeah.
It's definitely, I think, the more aware that you become of yourself. I mean, you go through ups and downs, you go through doubts, you
Mhm.
go through moments where you're like, I can't believe I reacted this way or had this experience. I thought I was past this. And we're just all on a learning journey.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's been a lifelong process thus far. I'm not even halfway through it, but I think from I'm one of those people that, I guess, blessed and cursed, that awareness and hyper awareness has been something that has been with me since really birth.
Mhm.
I remember it being 5 years old and 4 years old, and being able to understand and see energetic happenings
Mhm.
and things going on in other worlds, in other ways, or know if someone had a passed on grandparent nearby.
Mhm.
So I was pretty overwhelmed, to be honest. I think that I was picking up on not only the people around me and the world around me on such deep levels of really knowing things, and sensing things about people that really maybe they didn't even know. It was so deep.
Mhm.
And then all the way to just how the energy of the world and the universe works, and can feel those flows. So that's really a lot to process
Yeah.
for anyone. And so I think that what my process has been is really working through different modalities or working through different practices that would help me quiet the static and be able to name and identify what was going on. And
Mhm.
I think it's in that action for me of what I needed even to personally be able to survive myself,
Mhm.
my gifts,
Yeah.
channel the gifts, not the curse.
Yeah.
But to be able to utilize my own potential and my own abilities in a way that was even functionable on a human level.
Yeah.
I really had to get to a place where I could identify, okay, this is me, this is not me, this is what's going on, this is what this means, and really almost to a pinpoint be able to identify and have awareness of what's going on. So, and I also like to overanalyze things. So it's just super fun in my head. but but the gift, I would say, of being able to do that is being able to assimilate massive amounts of energy information and energy data and distill it into very, very distinct key points and break that down into action points. And that really comes back to how and why it's been a natural segue into helping others and to say, oh, I see what's going on with you. It's this, and this. And we can give you some action points that would be this, and this. And I think that if you utilize that, then you'll be able to work on your own journey more easily. And so it's been kind of that process. But that being said, each day is a new day. And I think we're all creatures, especially of self doubt, that even when you are aligned perfectly with everything within yourself and, this entire universe system, it doesn't mean that you don't show up and really question, who am I? What am I doing? What is this? Is this
Mhm.
my path? And so I think that's normal. And I think that's healthy because I think it's healthy to kind of keep us in check with our alignments and make sure that the
Yeah.
directions that we feel connected to are in fact what we're connected to and where we need to go because things change.
Yeah.
So that's been my journey. And it's definitely an interesting journey,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Mhm.
I think we've talked about that.
Yeah.
It's just it's so fun to live. I mean, it's sometimes devastatingly hard,
Yeah.
but you look around in the world and we're all in it together. So so
Yeah.
it's really, I think, exciting to get to be a part of supporting one another and on a journey all together.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's hard to say living is fun when at the moment it may suck, but I agree with you. You know, I do think that it's sort of exciting to be here. And I know that like on a soul level, like it's considered really cool to be here because we get to experience creation in a way that's so physical that you don't necessarily have like such a fully integrated like an emotional, a mental, like a spiritual experience all at the same time. So
Hmm.
sometimes it sucks, but I think above it all, there's still such beauty in creation everywhere that I just think that ultimately that makes it worth it. I know that when I was dealing like with my own trauma, that I just so desperately wanted to be happy and I was determined to make it work. And part of that was because I'm like, I want to be here actually, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And I like how you keep using the word alignment because that's one of my magic words. I love that word. It makes me so happy. And I do agree with you on the idea that we have to keep checking in with our alignment because as you shift and as you change and as you grow, this sounds weird, but the more you get into alignment, the more you expand and the more you change. So you might be
Hmm.
thinking, I am a teacher and I'm working at a school and I'm living my best life as a teacher. But then like life comes along, especially now, and you're like, okay, for some reason I don't like this anymore. I was the happiest person in the world, but now it just doesn't feel like something I like even. And so then you have to check in back in with yourself and say, do I need to be doing more? Like, is this an expansion? Because I
Hmm.
do find that oftentimes when people it's almost like milestones, right? So it's, you get into alignment, you do the thing that makes you like super happy. You're a teacher or a nurse or a NASCAR driver, whatever. And you do the thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, I loved being an actor, but actually, I think I really like directing instead. And what's important, especially in changing careers, is figuring out, why am I doing what I am doing? Like, what about this feeds me? What about this do I love? And is there another way that I can expand into it? Because I find that when you are unsatisfied in some way, it's because your soul is calling you to go deeper into what it is that you're already doing. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree that. I agree with that. That's amazing. And I think it's a huge part. I think it's a huge part of our transformational journey. I mean, I know you and I have talked about, I think, some degree of this before. Um, but our world is so much less dense than it was 40, 50 years ago. You know, when you would see someone in the same career, the same life trajectory for pretty much the whole of their life, I think it was less to do with that was what made them happy and more about that was the expectation. And
Yes.
now we have so many lifetimes within our one life because our society and our culture, the energy around us is so much less dense. So everything is moving faster. Our time is faster. We're able to accomplish our transformations and our milestones, as you put them, so much more quickly.
Mhm.
And especially because we're all hyper connected to one another. And I think with that, it's more exciting, but it's also more scary because it really at times feels like there's no ground to
Yeah.
stand on. And
Yeah.
we somehow, even though maybe there never really was,
Mhm.
somewhere in our psyche and our cultural psyche as a
Yeah.
collective, we still somehow expect, the world to kind of operate the same way it did in 1930s,
Right.
or something along those lines.
Mhm.
And it just doesn't. So our
Yeah.
ground looks really different. Our physical planes look different. Our opportunities look different. And I think it is so critical to keep realigning with what ticks and being okay with that. I think even more important than realigning is aligning and giving yourself permission to be okay with what you discover.
Yes. Ooh, yes. Because I can't tell you how many times I have like remade myself. And it's I mean, honestly, like moving, switching jobs, and
Mhm.
especially like moving to this career that I'm doing now, this like mediumship and energy healing and channeling stuff. Like it's a hard turn from what I was doing before.
Yeah.
But as I look back on it, I realized that there was an undercurrent that I was following in all of the previous things I was doing that got me to here. And every time I had thought, okay, this is it, I'm done, this is the thing, it ended up not being the thing because there's always more to grow into. And I really like how you said that there's many lifetimes in one lifetime, because I so get that.
Right.
I I totally
Yes.
feel like it's true. And I do think that that's kind of what keeps you young in a way, that willingness to continue to grow and to continue to change. And actually, I think that's why you look so stinking young, because people who are listening, when she says things like, oh, this started like 20 years ago, you're like, there's no way. Because, first of all, like you're like drinking the blood of unicorns or something. Like, I don't understand. But I do think that's part of like keeping up with things, is like keeping up, like you're allowed to change as many times. Like, you're not done changing until you're dead, you know, like you're not
And
done.
and and even then we don't really we don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
We
Yeah.
don't really know.
It's never
We're not on that side of things. So I'm gonna even say even then, even
yeah.
then we're gonna keep going. But
Mhm. Yeah.
thank you.
With you.
That's really funny. And no, I don't drink unicorn blood, but um I do believe in healthy living and lots of water. So
Oh, me too.
that's a whole other conversation. But no,
You're
it's
right, it is.
it's true. I think surrender and surrendering to transformation in your life and really that kind of looks like diving off a cliff 99%. It's the most terrifying, uncomfortable feeling in the world. And I think the reason I'm such a transformation junkie is I've sort of become I guess I don't want to say addicted to that because it's not really, it's just a knowing of each transformation in my personal life. Things get more and more aligned and better and
Mm,
better. You know, I feel like I can feel the pull and I can feel the calling towards the directions I'm meant to go. And I know what it feels like to try to stop that, to try to stand still and to not face the things that are really begging you to surrender and release and heal inside. And what it feels like is a slow death of you
mhm.
basically eating yourself alive because you know something is off and wrong or not in alignment.
Absolutely.
And so when you can get into a practice of knowing, okay, when I surrender, even when it feels like I want to die, you know,
Mhm.
by knowing that each step that you take beyond this feeling and this feeling and this feeling, no matter how hard it feels, when you can push past that and not push physically, but almost push by breathing, by surrendering, by just letting go without any thought of the outcome on the other side, that's when the greatest magic and greatest miracles happen. That's when the most incredible transformations happen. And the reason we want transformations is because on the other side of transformation is a more aligned, elevated version of yourself
Mhm.
that opens a new world of gifts to you, that opens a new world of communication, abundance,
Mhm.
appreciation, and gratitude for the world around you, and just deeper connections and relationships in your life. So each time you delve deeper into that, it's almost that the more you surrender, the more that you give yourself permission in a transformation journey, the more you are gifted with the ability to experience life on a more joyful level. And so for me, I am completely addicted to that. It's just a calling that I want to see. I want to see how far does it go? Where does this go? You know,
Yeah.
what are the things that are patterned in habits for people of transformation? What are those patterns that people go through? How can we distill that information to make it easier? So
Mm.
that's what really ties back to bringing the yoga, the transformational yoga, and coaching and speaking back around full circle to that component.
No, so you keep bringing up surrender, and I really wanna ask you if you
Hmm.
think, like, personally, if surrender is sort of a passive sort of a thing or kind of an active state of being, or if it's both.
So if you want to place the word passive on one side of this the conversation
Mhm.
and active on the other, surrender is exactly in the balance of the two.
Mhm.
So it's not an active push and it's not a I give up and have nothing, you
Mm.
know, to offer. And that's really so that's on the mental emotional side. And then when we look at yoga, a lot of what we do in yoga is exactly in the balance of passive and active.
Mm.
You are to some degree actively present, but you're not pushing forward deeply. There are obviously some poses in yoga or some types of yoga where you are very active,
Yes.
but it's in a surrendered space, and the more that you surrender into your life, into your thoughts, into your energy flow, then the more everything comes into alignment and balance.
Yeah, I like that answer. And I agree with it. And for the longest time, I thought that surrender was a passive state. And I am so not a passive energy. And so I had a really hard time with that. So I'm like, surrender, no way.
I
Um,
definitely know that you're not because we work together and I'm like, you can, okay, here we go.
and it was like seriously, in yoga, I fight it every time because
You do, you
yeah,
really do, but
I do.
that's completely normal.
Always gotta push it. I can't surrender. And I think what actually like me, someone who's very kind of like type A, what helped me with surrender is like the choice to surrender
Mhm.
because that made it like an active decision for me. And I find that when I am trying to make a change and it's not happening, it's because I haven't fully surrendered to the change and I'm unconsciously
Yes.
working against it. And so,
Yes.
yeah, and so what I have to do is I have to say, okay, I'm fully committing to this. Like I am going to be present with this. And it's sort of like, it sounds weird, but being present is sort of, for me at least, the way I experience, it's sort of an active state of like surrendering. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think the important thing is just like there's no wrong way to do meditation. There's no wrong
Right.
way to really breathe. I mean, there are ways that are obviously more conducive to airflow, right? You
Mhm.
know, if you're if you're shallow breathing, it's not going to feel the greatest. There's
Mhm.
other ways
Yeah.
technically. I think each person's going to have their own process and their own experience with what surrender looks like to them.
Mhm.
But oftentimes, and especially in moments of coaching people, it's funny because we might be in a moment of, um, you know, what I like to say, active resistance to the good.
Mhm.
So it's like we really are saying, God, universe, however you name that
Mhm.
space in your life, I really want this. And then all of that starts trying to form into your life and create this for your life. And then you're in a state of resistance to it.
Mhm.
The thing that you're actually begging for. And
Right.
you're like, why isn't it happening? And it's like, well, if you would take your feet off the brakes, it might, you might move forward. But
Yeah.
I like to always say to people when I see that in action, like, okay, or especially if someone says, I don't know how to do this, or maybe I'm doing this wrong, my question is, do you know how to breathe?
Mm.
Are you actively thinking about breathing? Do you resist breathing?
Oh,
Sometimes the answer is yes.
yeah.
Sometimes we actually do resist breathing. But
Yeah.
if you can turn it back to how are you breathing? Do you surrender in your breath? Is it something you have to really think about? And if you're alive, the chances are you're doing a somewhat decent job of breathing.
Yeah.
So if you're managing that, then chances are you can manage surrender because it's essentially the same balance of passive active
Mhm.
as breath. And there's always ways to make that better. There's ways to make your breath work practice better and healthier and give you, more breath and more nourishment to your body. But if you're alive, you're doing a pretty good job of it. And so that means you can do a pretty good job of surrendering too.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're alive, you're halfway there. Um, and so I think one of the other things I wanted to hit on is, I think we
Yeah.
touched this a little bit, but the aspect of combining sort of like the energy healing that just like you naturally just do being you, and yoga, that did that sort of come easily? Did that come naturally to you?
Do I do that? No, I'm just kidding. We've talked about that I do that. I think to answer that question is, I mean, I'm a Reiki master. I was trained in that form of energy work, but in realizing that energy work, it really only brought to light to me how much we're all energy workers and how we all work in energy and move things in energy. So even though I studied under one form of an acknowledgement of energy work,
Mhm.
I actually find greater strength in personal decisions and tension setting. And so
Mm.
I think that what happens even more necessarily than me doing energy work for someone, I'm always doing energy work.
Yeah.
It's kind of something that's hard for me to turn off because I care so deeply about people around me. And it's just a constant of me sending, for the most part, really positive thoughts. I rarely catch myself in a negative space unless I'm really just pissed off or angry at someone. And even then I'll self-correct. I'm like, okay, so energy has power. We don't want to be nasty. Like, let's
Right.
tone it down. Let's reframe this perspective
Mhm.
and use it, use it for a positive transformation, whatever's happening. But so aside from that, I think we naturally always are in our thoughts doing energy work, in our energy doing energy work, in our breath doing energy work, all of us in
Yeah.
some form or fashion. And I really think that that's something that's going to start elevating in the future as we all come into greater awareness and states of elevation with our understanding of our personal selves. Really, that how intensely strong our thoughts and our emotions create energy impact.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, to kind of answer your question about how I bring energy work into transformational yoga, I think it's so natural. I don't realize I'm doing it, but also it's really important that when I'm doing transformational yoga, it's not a yoga class that people just show up and take. I do that type of yoga training as well. But
Mhm.
with the transformational yoga, it's a one on one. It's something that we talk about, or I intuit an area that maybe they're having some block or issue in, or would benefit from a specific transformation.
Yeah.
And so we kind of discuss that and are on the same page with it. And then I move into kind of channeling intuitive space of what type of yoga class would be great for them. And not just great in a one time moment, but really is going to elevate a transformation multiple times in, as we've done classes together, each time you take or retake that class, it transforms you on a deeper level the more you surrender and really allow it to happen. So I think that what is even more and important and impactful in the classes that I like to work with people on is an intention. And when you set an intention, the power of that is really, for me, bigger than words. We set intentions every day of our lives, whether we are actively conscious of that or whether we're just sending out thoughts to our detriment. So when we set positive intentions of what we're wanting to elevate, that's of a higher vibration and something that's going to help us grow and grow into a positive space or transformation, it really starts to work all on its own. And then the more you give belief and the more you give breath to that intention and that truth for yourself, the whole world starts conspiring to work that out for you. So
Mhm.
that's really, I think, what's at play even more than what you're feeling with an energy healing. Although I do that too, because because I can't help it. Just like, well, we're here, so let's just dive into some energy
Uh-huh.
work too.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a side, I guess, a side benefit of all the other practices that I do. But I think that the actual transformational yoga, the powerhouse that you're feeling is really, it really stems from co-creating with the person in front of me and just kind of helping guide and develop a class or a training that's specific to what they're needing with a
Mhm.
very, very strong core intention. And that is what is everything.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. When I'm not great with intentions because I like forget about them as soon as I write them down. But what I like about when you incorporate intentions is that it's like I have someone holding me to it. And when that happens, it's like so much transformation comes from it.
Hmm.
It's like being present with it, showing up for it, and then like doing it and committing to it. And then I also
Right.
liked how you brought up that like everyone is an energy healer because yes,
Yes.
you know, but not everyone.
Because it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, to me, it's the same way of saying like everyone is a medium and like everyone's intuitive. It's just,
Hmm.
are you aware of it? You know, but definitely everyone's an energy healer and definitely everyone is constantly affecting their reality with their thoughts and their emotions. And I just I don't know, I just like that you brought that up. I just thought that was important, and I want to reiterate it for everyone that you definitely are creating your current reality with your beliefs, your thoughts, and your emotions, and that taking responsibility for them, or at least claiming them and being present with them, is definitely how you start that process of changing things. Um,
Exactly. And I think it's really important that the more that we come into a willingness to accept that we are creating our realities for the good or the bad of it. You know, if you see something, it's really easy to have belief in that when it's something positive and exciting. And
yeah.
when you're faced with challenges, it's much harder to want to take accountability for that. It's
Mhm.
obviously everyone else's fault in that situation.
Yeah.
Um, which is not true. It's, it's a part of
Uh-huh.
when we're going through challenges. It's really, it's a gift for us to be able to say, okay, this is ready to heal
Mhm.
and surrender. And how am I impacting this situation? How am I
Mhm.
accountable for what's in front of my face and happening? And there's always a silver lining, and there's always a gift involved. And then on the other side of that is a transformation. And on the other side of transformation is, it's kind of like, you get to pass go. You get to
Yeah.
then experience the world in a different way, where maybe that thing that was in front of you that was so hard
Mhm.
is diminished. It's light and it's easy to move through. It's not the
Yeah.
thing that comes up for you and takes your breath away, or makes you scared or makes you shut down. It's healed, and it's not such a big scary. And so I think that, circling back to what you've said about intentions, my viewpoint is that really comes back to coming into your own power, is recognizing the power that you stand within each and every day. And surrender is a huge part of it. Intention setting is a huge part of it. And even intentions written down are very powerful for so many people. But we
Mhm.
have to also recognize that our thoughts throughout a day are just as creating as the ones that we sit and meditate on or focus on, or write within. So it's really developing healthy lifestyle habits around, what a day-to-day life of creation, of surrender, of transformation, of healing, and of happiness looks like. Because just in the span of one single day, we can go
Yeah.
through the roller coaster of the ups and downs of our highs and lows of emotions
Mhm.
endless times, and that's
Yeah.
that's normal. It's completely normal. And
Yeah.
just to, I think, give ourselves permission to understand that life, period, is that experience of the highs and lows, the good, the bad, the difficult, and it's all good. But it's
Mhm.
an experience that really moves. It's not just going to be a steady, sunny feeling day all day every day, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really important to nurture and love and honor those days and those feelings within ourselves as well, because we're still transforming. We're still um, creating, and we're still healing in those spaces too.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what I just realized as you were talking? The reason that I have such a hard time with setting my own intentions is that I don't surrender to them.
It's really that alignment is your favorite word. Surrender is mine. So I think that, there are actually times that I will come into complete exhaustion with things,
Mhm.
where I've just hit wall after wall after wall. And I'm just like, fuck it. I surrender this. And I literally say, fuck it. And the people around me are like, I mean, does it have to really go to that place? And I'm like, it actually does, because I have fought hard to
Yeah.
work myself into this surrender. And it literally comes to me usually lying on the floor with my feet above my head, just
Yeah.
like, fuck it. I don't even care what happens anymore. And then when I get to that place, I've stopped. I've just dropped everything, I've just dropped everything. I've surrendered the outcome. And that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, I've been there. It's like as my mom likes to say about me, she likes to say that I like to learn my lessons all at once. I have to get myself to the point where I'm like, "Fine," and then
That's
I'll let
right.
go.
That's right.
I know. And then I was looking at your About Me page on chaoscalm.com, and you mentioned quite often that you are really about the search for the solution, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I feel that, like, for you, but also for me. And then I was thinking, isn't it funny how, like, that search for a solution, it's sort of like it either makes you a scientist or a spiritualist, don't you think?
Why not both, right?
Yeah, ooh,
Like, we're
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think I love the science of the spiritual and of the body and of the earth, and
Mhm.
how we all move in and through our journeys. So yes, I love solution finding, and I love helping people make it easier.
Yeah, I feel that. Well,
Yeah, it's true.
Do you want to tell the people how they can get in touch with you and work with you?
Yes, thank you so much, Harvard. This has been so much fun. And
It
I
was
feel
so
like
much fun.
I know we could go on and on and on and
Yeah.
actually talk for days because we, in fact, have. But this is really super fun. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So, yes, people can check out what I do with this work on www.chaoscalm.com. It's spelled like the word chaos and the word calm, because I believe it takes the balance of chaos and calm to
Mm,
find it's that passive action balance.
yeah.
.com. So you can check me out there, and you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm usually pretty social. So if someone has any questions or wants to talk about anything, they can feel free to reach out and connect, or just if they want to stay in touch, they can be in touch as well. But I'm oftentimes, especially during non-COVID times, we'll do different workshops or trainings or do one-on-ones as well. So I'm definitely open to talking about what works best for each individual person out there, but I can't wait to connect.
Yeah, and I highly, highly recommend Georgie, you guys. I mean, I still take those yoga classes again and they still change me. So I absolutely recommend working with Georgiana. And Georgiana, I love this. I would love to have you on sometime again.
I would
And
love that.
thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I'm so just enthralled with your work. I'm so happy that you really came into your calling. You're such a special person and a special friend. I'm really, really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And all right. Bye, guys.
Bye.